So now we're going to have a look at our arpeggiators. Now within June 3, we have an additional arpeggiator that can be used independently. So both ARPs 1 and 2 can be used independently. And of course, we can switch ARPs on or off for either all the voices, or alternatively, we could have different ARPs working on different voices. So we get even more flexibility in terms of what we can achieve in our sound design with the arpeggiators. Okay, so let's have a look at the parameters of the arpeggiator. So first of all, we have type. Now this allows us to change it from a traditional arpeggiator, which is a step sequencer setting, or we can use it for MIDI playback. We'll have a look at that in a separate video. And we can also play back pre-programmed June 3 patterns. Let's actually switch on the arpeggiator here. We can go through using the arrow keys here. And we can also go in and initialize that as well. Okay, so let's have a look at the parameters of the arpeggiator now. Let me just reset my logic fader there. So first of all, we have the number of steps, or we have the pages of steps that we can edit. And that corresponds to the number of steps here. So 1 to 8 corresponds to our 8 steps. If we had 16 steps here, to edit the next 8 steps, essentially we'd have to move across to the second page. Let's keep this on to 8 so it's a bit simpler. Now the next option we have here is to change up the pitch of each one of our steps. So let me just go and make some changes here. And you can clearly hear there that we're creating a kind of transposed sequence. Let's reset that. The next option we have is velocity. So we could go in and just change our velocity values. And then within the mod matrix, we can actually use the velocity of the arpeggiator as a modulation source. So let's choose a wavetable, for example. Let's put it onto one at random. And let's set the destination to be oscillator 1, wavetable position. And you can clearly hear the difference there. Let's actually make this a little bit more drastic. So that's without it. And that's with it. So that's really cool because it means that the arpeggiator velocity can become a modulation source. It's actually worth noting as well, let me just bring the filter into play here, that we can use the actual arpeggiator notes as a modulation source too. So let's just go in. I'll just randomly drag things around here and create something. So you can clearly hear the difference in the notes there, but let's choose source, ARP 1 note, destination, filter 1 cutoff. Let's bring the amount up. And I'm going to bring the resonance up so we can really hear this. You can kind of hear that at work there. So let's compare those two notes there, for example. Obviously the pitch of them is wildly different, but it's also changing the timbre of the sound because the low pitch notes are duller and the high pitch notes are brighter because we're using ARP 1 note as a modulation source. So again, you can create some very interesting patterns that way. Okay, let's reset things. Switch our arpeggiator back on. Now the next thing we can do is actually tie two notes together. So that allows us to create that kind of trademark, almost like 303 kind of tied rhythmic pattern, which is really cool. Now if the two notes that we're working the tie with have the same pitch, then we're not actually going to hear a slide. But if we were to change the pitch here, we would actually hear a slide between the two notes. And we can choose how long that slide is going to last using this slide parameter here. But obviously if the notes, as I said, are the same pitch, we just get an extended note. And the note that we have the tie initiated for is the one which is extended. Okay, so next thing we have is the modes of the arpeggiator. Now we have an up mode, which means it's going to go up in pitch, so starting from the bottom going upwards. So it triggers from the lowest to the highest note. Then we can do down, which is the opposite, so it goes highest to lowest. We can do up down. That's going to do first up, then down. We can do down up. So it does the opposite. We have an alternative up, so it's just a kind of variation. We can do alternative down. We can play random notes, so it's just going to randomly select from the notes that we're playing. We can go to chord. That's going to play back all the notes of the chord simultaneously, which is cool. We have silent. Now this means we can switch off the arpeggiator and instead just use it as a modulation source. So let me demonstrate. So we'll switch that off and let's again change up the notes here. Okay, let's go to the mod matrix and then let's choose once again up one note. Let's choose filter cutoff again. Let's bring the resonance up. I'm going to use this acid low pass setting because this is quite a good one to really hear this. So now we're not actually hearing any of the sound from the arpeggiator in terms of the notes. We're just using that as a modulation source, which is pretty cool. Now the next mode we have here is dynamic. So this kind of plays through the notes and then continues to arpeggiate the last played note. So as we play a new note, it replaces the note that's arpeggiating before. And then finally we have playback. And this allows us to use the MIDI setting here to play back polyphonic sequences. So we're going to come back to that when we have a look at the MIDI playback. So what's remaining on here is the ability to sync this to the project tempo. We can choose the rate of the arpeggiator. So we just drag up there. Let's put this back to up. We can choose the length of the notes. We can swing as well here. Let's put this to 16th so it's a little bit more obvious. And we've already been through slide. And that is the parameters of the arpeggiator. In the next video we're going to have a look at playing back MIDI. So I'll see you then. Thanks for watching.